Hello everyone and welcome back to the Humble Coder. Today we are going to dive into the fascinating world of React.js and the topic for today is states. State is what allows your React components to keep track of data and respond to the user interactions. In this video, we will explore state with fun examples and detailed explanations to help you grasp the concept easily. So let's jump right in. So first of all, let's discuss about the topics that we are going to cover in this video. First of all, we are going to see what is states in React.js. Next thing that we are going to see is setting up a state in a class component. And after that, we are going to see how to manage state in functional components. Then we are going to see updating the states and triggering re-renders. And at the end of this video, we are going to see an interview question based on states. So let's start. Before starting the video, I just want you to know that I have created a repository on my GitHub that with the name React tutorial, and if you want to access all the codes which I am doing in this video, you can just go to this repository and you can go to the commits section of this repository, and there you will find the video number and the topic name. Once you are on the particular video and the topic name, you just have to click this button and you will get all the code related to that topic. Now let's start. So first of all, let's understand what is state in React. So state in React is like a piece of paper where we can write and remember information that might change over time. It helps our component stay up to date and interactive. Let's see how we can set up state in both class and functional components. So in class components, we use the constructor and setState method to set up and manage state. Let's create a simple class component together to see the action. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I have this app.js component where I have called counter component, and counter is my custom component, and I have not written anything in this component. I'm just going to write the code from scratch. And so right now we are going to see states in class based components. So for that I'm going to use RCE so that it will give me the basic class structure. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write an h2. So instead of this counter, I want that there should be an h2. Okay. So let me, instead of this dev, let me use React fragments. And h2. And inside the h2, I want that there should be a text which states count, and the value as of now, let's keep it as hard coded as 0. Now when you will go to the browser and when you have a look, you can see the value coming as count 0. Okay. Now we want that this value should increase automatically on a button click. Whenever we click a button, this value should automatically get incremented. So for that, what we will do, first of all, we will create a button over here. Okay. So let me create a button. So a button is created and this button will say increment, so that we will get to know that we have to increment the value. So once this is done, we have the structure ready with us. Okay. We want that on the button click, the counter value should increase. So first of all, let's call a on click event handler on this. So in that we will call a simple function which will say this dot handle increment. Okay. Now what we are going to do is we are going to define this function handle increment. Now we always define the function over here. So handle increment, we don't need to write this handle, this dot handle increment equals, and then we will have our code here. Now instead of hard coding this value 0 over here, we are going to make use of state. So how we will do this? First of all, we are going to create a constructor, because this is the method of, like, this is the procedure for creating a state in class based components. So here we will say props. You can consider this as a kind of syntax. Inside this we have a super method which will again take props. After that we will make use of this dot state, and then we will assign the value. So our state name is count and the value that we are initializing is 0. Once this is done, what we are going to do is we are now going to define our handle increment function. So we want that whenever our handle increment function is called, our value should be incremented, right? So in order, we have to set the value for our state. So this dot set state, in that what we are going to do is we are going to write this count this dot state dot count plus 1. What this will do is this will basically increment our value by 1. So I have taken this handle increment function out of the render method because we have to define this function outside. So once this is done, what I'm going to do is instead of this hard coded 0 value, I'm going to write this dot handle increment. Instead of this, I'm going to call the state value, that is this dot state dot count. So what it will do is basically it will initially take the count state value. So our initial value that we have set is 0. So initially it will display 0. So you can see initially now the value that is displaying is 0. Now what will happen is when we will click on button, this on click event handler is going to call this function handle increment. Now inside this handle increment, we have set the value. So whenever we are changing or setting the value, we make use of this set state method. So this dot set state, and how we assign the or change the value is simply whatever our state name is. So our state is count. Then we make use of our previous state value, which is this dot state dot count. This will be 0 and then plus 1 to it. So in this way, it will change the value of count to 1. So once I'll save it, and whenever I'm clicking on it, you can see the value being incremented to 1 and so on. So this is how we have implemented a counter functionality in class-based component using the state. I hope state is now clear to you is class-based component. Basically, state in class-based component is a bit tricky because we have to use this dot at all the places, and in order to make this functionality easier, we have hooks in React, which is like the use state hook, which we are going to use in functional based component. So I'm going to tell you that in a minute basically, but let me revise you this thing that we have done so far. So in this example, we created a class component called counter. Inside the constructor, we initialize the state with counter variable set to 0. When the increment button is clicked, handle increment method is called, which uses the set state to update the count state by incrementing its value. The set state method triggers a re-render of the component with the updated state, causing the UI to display the new value of count. Now let's look at managing the states in function components, because this is what we are going to use in our normal coding journey. Because as I have already told you, functional components are the new one and class-based components were the one which we used to use previously. With React hooks, we can use state in functional components too, without the need for classes. Let's convert our previous example into a functional component with state using the use state hook. So let's go to the code editor. So first of all, you can see that we have to import use state hook from React because we are going to use it in our code. Okay, once we have imported this, what we are going to do is we are going to create our state with the name count, and then here itself we are going to call the method set count. Okay, so basically we are defining count, and with the use state here we are defining its initial value. So we want that our count should have the initial value of 0, and then set count will then change its value to whatever we will assign. So in the return statement, you can see that initially I am having an h2 with the value count, and then this count is our state, and then we have a button which says increment, and we have an on click handler which will call the function handle increment. So when in our handle increment function, we have changed the value of set count to count plus 1. So basically what it will do is it will increment the count value by 1. So you can see how easy this code is. Basically what we are doing is we have first of all set our count state, and we have assigned it the initial value, and whenever we click on the button, we are calling this function handle increment, and then we are setting the value of count state. So once I save it and I go to my web browser, you can see when I click on the increment button, my value is getting increased. So initial value was 0 because we have set the initial value using the use state as 0. So this is very easy, although it might seem you a little bit tough at the initial level, but if you will understand, and when you start working with it, this is the most easiest way. So in this functional component example, we use the use state hook to declare the count variable, and its setter function is set count with the initial value of 0. When the increment button is clicked, the handler increment function is called, which uses set count to update the count state by incrementing its value. Similar to using set state in class component, set count triggers a re-render, allowing the UI to reflect the updated value of count. So I hope now you have got the understanding of how we can use states in functional component. Now let's see how state updates trigger re-renders. When we'll create a toggle component that switch between on and off when clicked. So let's go to the VS Code again. So I have created this toggle component and I have called this inside our app component. Inside the toggle component, we are using again the use state hook, and I have imported it. And first of all, what I am doing is I am initializing the set is on state with the value false. You can see that I have initialized it with the value false, and we have set is on, which we will use for setting the value for of is on. Next, we have a button, and the button says on or off based on the value of is on. So whatever our is on value is, it will say on or off. So initially we have set the value as false. So initial case, it will be off only, but whenever we will set the value to on, the button will say on. And we have this on click event handler, which calls the function handle toggle, and handle toggle work is just to set the value of is on to whatever it is currently. So it will set the opposite value. For example, if the initial value is false, what set is on handle toggle function will do is it will change it to true, and if it is true, it will simply change it to false. Basically, this not will change the value to the opposite one. So once I'll save it and go to my browser, when I click on it, you can see off being changed to on and on being changed to off. So in the toggle functional component, we use the use state hook to declare the is on state variable and its setter function set is on with an initial value of false. Okay. When the button is clicked, the handle toggle function is called, and we use set is on to update the is on state with the opposite value. True becomes false and false becomes true. This update triggers a re-render, and as a result, the text displayed on the button switches between on and off depending on the current state. So this example was just to understand how the state updates triggers or switches between on and off depending on the current state. So you have to understand that whenever there is a change in state, the UI re-renders. Okay. So that concludes our fun journey through React.js states. Now it is the time to look at the interview question that we can have. So what is state in React.js and how it is different from props? So in React.js, state is a fundamental concept that allows components to store and manage internal data. It represents the information that can change over time and affects the component's behavior and re-rendering. State is essential for creating interactive and dynamic user interfaces, as it enables components to respond to user interactions, events, and changing data. Now this is the basic definition of states that we have looked at. Now let's look at the difference between states and props. So props get passed to the component, whereas state is managed within the component. We have seen that we used to pass the props from parent component to the child component, but we create a state within a component itself. Next difference is props are used in functional props are termed as functional parameters, whereas states are termed as variable declared inside the function body. Next is props are immutable. So once we pass the value of props from parent to child component, the value of props cannot be changed in the child component, whereas states can be changed. We use set method to change the value of states inside the single component. Last is props. In functional components, we make use of props itself, and in class component, we make use of this dot props. And in hooks, in functional components, we make use of use state hook, whereas in class component, we make use of this dot state for using states. I hope now you have got the understanding of what states are in React components, and also if you have any doubt related to it, let me know in the comment section, because I know if you are studying states for the first time, it can be a little bit overwhelming and you might get confused, but I can make you rest assured that this is the most easiest concept in React.js, and once you will start practicing on it, you can easily understand it. So with this, we have come to an end of this topic. I hope the examples and detailed explanations helped you understand the state better. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Humble Coder for more exciting content. If you have any questions or suggestions for me, please leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching and happy coding.